So there we have it, Mercedes has unveiled its challenger for the 2023 season, the W14. This Mercedes has a job ahead of itself that no Mercedes car has had before: redemption. Following the considerable step back the Mercedes team took in 2022, they'll be looking to make things right straight off the blocks in 2023. Once again, they have the formidable driver lineup of 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, determined to get his record-breaking 8th title, and the supremely talented George Russell, equally determined to win his first title. Mercedes will also need to keep an eye out on the competition at hand, with Red Bull undoubtedly favourites for the title, and a refreshed Ferrari ready to right the wrongs from last season. So for this video, let's have a look at where Mercedes went wrong in 2022, how they can correct those shortfalls, and whether they have what it takes to be world champions once again. So, the Mercedes Formula 1 team, sitting third of all time in terms of wins and championships, they are undoubtedly one of the greatest teams to ever grace Formula 1. Since they joined the sport in 2010, Mercedes have won 8 championships in 12 years, winning 116 out of 259 races. That's a 45% win rate over the space of 12 Formula 1 seasons. It's simply a level of dominance we have never seen before in Formula 1, especially considering the large majority of those wins came since 2014. However, as of recent, it's been far from plain sailing for the Brackley-based outfit. Following the controversial and heated 2021 championship fight, the team were faced with a huge change in technical regulations for the 2022 season, the biggest in the sport's history. However, we were still expecting Mercedes to deliver a very competitive car as they had done for 8 seasons in a row. However, it did not turn out that way. Come the first race, Mercedes found themselves way off the pace fighting among the midfield, and it became pretty clear what their problem was. Due to the regulations focusing heavily on using ground effects, basically where the air is passed under the car to suck the car to the ground, creating downforce, many cars on the grid began experiencing porpoising, where the car would be sucked to the ground so much that it would hit the surface of the track, losing all downforce before bouncing up quite violently. And well, to reduce this, Mercedes had to run their car at a much higher height than what they had intended, which means a slower car. And so throughout the season, they were plagued with these porpoising issues, but slowly managed to reduce the effects as the season went on. By the midway point, they were able to challenge in a few races before the end of the season, where their car was the best of the field in a couple races, most notably the Brazilian Grand Prix, which George Russell won. All in all, they've got some great momentum heading into 2023. So what do Mercedes need to change to truly fight for the championship once again in 2023? Well, it is actually fairly simple. All their problems feed into porpoising as the root cause. As mentioned, why the Mercedes was slow was because they had to raise the height of the cars to reduce the porpoising. And as a result of this, they were forced to run more downforce on the rear and front wings to make up for the lost downforce from raising the ride height. And so what can they do to reduce this porpoising? Well, they simply need to make the floor of the car much stiffer to reduce the chance of the floor flexing as the result of ground effects, which causes the porpoising. However, as always, there is a caveat. Making the floor stiffer tends to add more weight to the cars, which obviously isn't a good thing. Not to mention the W13 was already one of the heaviest cars on the grid in 2022. So this area is definitely something Mercedes need to focus on. And not to mention, also the minimum weight of the cars has been reduced by 2 kilograms as well, so that will only make things harder. But as I said, the weight is an issue, but the main focus for Mercedes should be reducing that porpoising. But while Mercedes need to clearly make developments with their car, one area they shouldn't need to worry about is their driver lineup. I would even say they have the strongest driver lineup on the grid right now. On one side of the garage you have Lewis Hamilton. He simply needs no introduction. The 7-time world champion is statistically the greatest driver of all time, but 2022 was not a season fit for a champion. Although he was beaten by George Russell, he was nevertheless very competitive and was frequently the one to challenge Max Verstappen. His experience was also invaluable for the team to diagnose and reduce the porpoising they suffered. Alongside him is the serious young talent of George Russell, who after having 3 impressive seasons with Williams, got the call up to Mercedes in 2022 and was extremely impressive. Russell stood out mainly for his incredible consistency, notably finishing in the top 5 in the first 9 races of the season when Mercedes was suffering the most. He did drop off a little bit 3 quarters into the season, but showed resilience to bounce back and take the first win of his career and Mercedes' first and only win of the season. As mentioned, by the end of the season, he actually beat Lewis on points, something that only 2 others have been able to do in the past, being Jenson Button and Nico Rosberg. And funnily enough, both of those are world champions. I think it's safe to say if Mercedes can deliver a good car, these two will take it to another level. However, in the case that Mercedes don't make another W11, they will have some serious competition from the other teams. Firstly, it would obviously be stupid to write Red Bull out of a championship fight, having dominated the 2022 season. They've got the best driver on the grid in Max Verstappen, and they are undoubtedly favourites going into 2023. However, with their wind tunnel testing restrictions and a shaky driver dynamic between Max and Sergio, who knows what could happen. And then of course you have Ferrari. Now, while they did have a tricky and disappointing 2022, they did still manage to deliver a very quick car, claiming more pole positions than any other team. However, the main thing for Ferrari is their management. As we all know, Mattia Binotto was sacked and replaced with Alfa Romeo's Fred Vasseur. But while this season may be seen by everyone else as a warming into season for Vasseur, I doubt he's going to see it in the same way. So all in all, Mercedes need to make a big step up from their woes of 2022 to challenge again in 2023. As mentioned, they will have needed to make various alterations of their car in order to correct the porpoising, which is the root cause of the majority of Mercedes' problems, as well as reducing overall weight of the car. But Mercedes did begin to find solutions towards the end of last season, which could mean they've completely eliminated any issues with ride height by the first race in March. If so, I have no doubt they should be a force to be reckoned with, seeing as they also have a very competitive and talented driver lineup. However, this does not necessarily mean their competition hasn't also made drastic gains over the winter break. As always, we'll have to see come Bahrain in just under 2 months.